Happy New Year to everybody. And this is our first lunchtime chat with Sandy for 2016. So the first thing I have to share with you today is that I must have done something rather naughty last year. I'm hoping it wasn't more than one thing, but instead of Christmas present, a nice gift this year, Santa brought me a virus. Next year I'm going to ask for coal. So if Santa's mad at me next year, I'm just going to ask, please just give me a lump of coal. I could deal with that one better. But I've had a virus. It has affected my vocal cords. And so if I sound rather squeaky and raspy, please forgive me. There's nothing much I can do about that. I didn't want to cancel our chat for today, but I did want to be honest with you and say that throughout the talk, I'm going to have to take little pauses. I'm hoping I don't have a coughing spasm, but if I do, just bear with me. I will take periodic sips of water during the talk today as well, so just please hang in there and bear with me. I do apologize, but hopefully by our February chat, I'll be back to Sandy's normal voice. At the moment, that has eluded me, so I do apologize. Okay, so back to the beginning. I hope that you have had a lovely holiday season and that at least some of you are refreshed and rested and anxious to get 2016 off to a good start. Note that I said at least some of you are rested, because I have no doubt that many of you are completely exhausted. Not only because of a rather hectic holiday season with all the preparation and socialization that comes with it, but also because you may have insomnia, a very common problem in the general population of people with Parkinson's, which increases with aging. But it's also a frequent and very troublesome problem among folks with Parkinson's, generally speaking. So today's topic, if you haven't already guessed it, is Parkinson's and sleep problems. I was going to say, to sleep perchance to dream, or not. Okay, I know. Tell you something you don't know, right? Come back in time with me for a minute to when we were teenagers. Now, for some of you, maybe that wasn't all that long ago. For me, it was a long time ago. Of course, I can't speak to you or for you, but back in the day when I was young, I had no trouble getting adequate sleep. I can still remember how frustrated my parents used to be with me if I was left undisturbed on a Saturday morning, because I could sleep until noon. Ah, yes, the good old days. So for the sake of today's talk, I'm going to define insomnia, which is a problem that I know I have periodically, but again, is quite common for people living with Parkinson's. Insomnia is a prolonged and abnormal sleeplessness. Okay, so back to reality in 2016. We aren't teenagers anymore. As I said a minute ago, as we get older, getting to sleep as well as staying asleep often becomes increasingly difficult. Just life stressors, and goodness knows there are plenty of things that stress all of us on a regular daily basis. Even those things can cause insomnia. I don't know about you, but sometimes when I put my head on the pillow, I start going over everything that happened that day, good things as well as not so good things. And that's often enough to keep me awake, no matter how much I toss and turn and change position. Some people have insomnia as part of their natural physical makeup. Lucky them. And now add Parkinson's to the mix. Even if you never had a sleepless night before, you heard the words, "You have Parkinson's." And even before you heard those words, I know that many of you find that your sleep is disturbed, And poor sleep translates into poor daytime performance. A poor night's sleep affects every aspect of your waking day, including control of your symptoms. To say many people with Parkinson's are chronically sleep deprived is putting it mildly, to be sure. Let's look at the most common causes of Parkinson's insomnia. Primary insomnia. This predates the onset of Parkinson's symptoms and is therefore considered to be an unrelated problem. In other words, Parkinson's can't be held accountable for this type of insomnia in particular. Remember what I keep telling you ad nauseum. Parkinson's isn't responsible for absolutely everything that happens to you from here on in. Then there's insomnia that is due to Parkinson's. This typically relates to insufficient treatment of your Parkinson's symptoms, both at bedtime as well as during the night. Then, of course, there's the urge to urinate. As far as I know, I don't have Parkinson's, but as a senior, I know I'm not alone when I have to share that I awaken during the night at least once each night, and I know that for people with Parkinson's, this can be a very frequent as well as a troublesome occurrence. Depression can cause insomnia as well. Once the depression is identified and treated, sleep problems almost always improve. And medications, to be sure. Certain antidepressants, as well as drugs such as selegiline, aldopril, drugs in that family, can cause insomnia if they're taken too late in the day. By far, the most common and significant reason for insomnia among those with Parkinson's is the Parkinson's symptoms themselves. And although that may sound like a very simplistic statement, let me tell you what I mean by that. It's important that you understand this because this cause of insomnia is often underestimated and often it goes untreated, which is a shame because it is highly treatable with your Parkinson's medications and with those medications that we have available today that are so great when it comes to symptom management. So let's go back to basics. If you don't have enough dopamine in your system, it is impossible to get comfortable and relax, whether you're awake or even when you're trying to get to sleep. The stiffness and muscle tension you will experience without enough medication on board are not compatible with being able to fall asleep. For those of you who have a resting tremor, that's the repetitive shaking issue that many people have, that can prevent sleep. Similar to noisy neighbors in the next apartment that might keep you awake. As well, stiffness and slowness of movement may also, because they limit your movement in bed, may also make it difficult for you to either fall asleep or stay asleep. I'm not sure if you're aware of the fact that we all normally toss and turn throughout the night to optimally position our body for comfort. So it only stands to reason that if your gas tank of dopamine is either empty or very low, in other words, if you are in an off state, you won't be able to turn and move, leaving you stuck under the bed covers. I assure you, those of us without Parkinson's would be awake in a heartbeat too if we were prevented from moving during the night. And then there's something called akathisia. That's that feeling of inner restlessness that some folks have, an inability to feel relaxed, a feeling that you can't sit or lie still, which is very uncomfortable, as you simply feel you have to get up and move. Unless your doctor asks you about this symptom, you may not be aware of that it's a Parkinson symptom, and you may not mention it during your appointment, which is really awful, because just like everything else I've just talked about, these things are treatable symptoms. So what do I mean when I say that tremor, rigidity or stiffness problems, and that moving in bed, and akathisia, that feeling like you have ants in your pants, can be treated? Well, the truth of the matter is, if your insomnia is linked to Parkinson's, then it stands to reason that the same medication used for slowness, stiffness, tremor that you experience during the waking day, I'm referring to your old friend levodopa or Sinemet or Prolopa, of course, that this is the drug of choice to treat those same symptoms during the night. It's not like Parkinson's symptoms suddenly vanish the minute you close your eyes and try to go to sleep. No, Parkinson's symptoms are with you day and night. Many of you may experience a fairly short response to levodopa. That means that the benefit may only last for 3 or 4 hours before you start experiencing symptoms of wearing off. That's when the medication is at a very low ebb in your system. And if this is the case with you, then you may need more than a single dose at bedtime to get you through the night. The dopamine agonist drugs, such as Mirapex and Requip, have longer durations. However, they're not potent enough or strong enough by themselves to cover your nighttime needs. It doesn't hurt to try them, but the drug of choice still remains levodopa. It is important to understand that how you take levodopa to treat your insomnia depends on whether you are having trouble getting to sleep, staying asleep, or both. So let's consider sleep in 3 stages. Okay? The first stage, falling asleep. Do you fall asleep within about 30 minutes of going to bed? Secondly, the early part of the night. Do you wake up anywhere from 1 to 3 hours after getting to sleep and are unable to get back to sleep? Or last part of the night. Do you wake up around 4 to 5 o'clock in the morning and are unable to get back to sleep after that? So, as usual, like everything else with Parkinson's, everyone who has problems with sleep varies from one individual to another. But for today's talk, I'm going to address the 3 main issues I've just mentioned in more detail and some strategies that might work for you. I'm just going to go over them again. So, do you fall asleep within 30 minutes of going to bed? Do you wake up anywhere from 1 to 3 hours after getting to sleep and are unable to get back to sleep? Or do you wake up within around 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning and are unable to get back to sleep after that? So, the first issue is, why can't I even get to sleep? What is going on? I never had this problem before this unwelcome visitor called Parkinson's came to my door and refused to leave, no matter how unwelcome I make him feel. Even when I do fall asleep, I sleep so lightly that the least little noise wakes me up. These things are all typically due to the fact that you don't have enough dopamine in your brain. Look at it this way. Ask yourself, when did I take my last dose of levodopa? That's your Sinemet or your Prolopa. Those are the 2 generic names for levodopa. So, if your last dose was around supper time, say at 5:30 or 6 o'clock, that would be 30 minutes before your supper. And if you've been taking your levodopa every 3 to 4 hours during the day, it stands to reason that 5 or 6 hours later, your brain has a real dopamine deficiency, which results in your inability to get to sleep. All this to say that the long interval between your last dose of medication and the time you want to go to sleep may be the problem. This is especially true if you experience wearing off within around 3 to 4 hours after taking your medication during the day, because if this is the case, your medication effect will definitely be gone before bedtime. So while the solution may seem obvious, i.e., you need to take another medication dose before you try to go to sleep, this is something that you need to discuss with your doctor and get some guidance about. In other words, how can you reorganize your medication schedule from him or from her, as there are several options, and it is very important to have the best option working for you. This is an excellent example of the fact that one size does not fit all. People sometimes assume that since they are asleep, they don't need medication during the night, or even before bedtime, if those of you who out there today are not having any problem getting to sleep. But if you're one of those lucky individuals who can fall asleep easily and stay asleep all night, then consider yourself very, very lucky. Just take your medication during the day as usual. Unfortunately, it doesn't work that way for everyone. And for some of you, you might find that whatever dose you take during the night to control your tremor, your stiffness, and your slowness, you may also need to take the same dose at bedtime. But please never, ever, ever just change your medication regimen. Be sure to discuss this with your doctor, and don't make any changes without consulting with him or her first. So along these same lines, sticking with the same theme of brain dopamine deficiency, why can some people get to sleep with no problem, but then wake up after a couple of hours and not be able to get back to sleep? In this case, what might be going on is that you're wearing off quite soon after getting to sleep, which results in you having difficulty turning over in bed because you're very stiff. Keep in mind that in order to get a good night's sleep, it is normal to change position several times throughout the night. If the stiffness is quite severe, it can result in painful muscle cramping, also known as dystonia, which is often the cause of folks waking up fairly shortly after falling asleep. One treatment that might be used here is the controlled or sustained release formulation of levodopa, known as Sinemet CR, CR standing for controlled release. The slow kick-in of this medication may be helpful if properly timed, as it will just start to take effect as the benefit from your last evening dose of your regular Sinemet is declining. In order for this to work, your Sinemet CR should be taken just as your head is hitting the pillow. Remember, this is not being used to get you to sleep. It is being used to help you to stay asleep, as it will kick in while you are sleeping. Your doctor may have other strategies, but as I always stress, it's very important to talk to your doctor about how your Parkinson's is impacting you and your quality of life. They can't help you if they don't know what's going on. So for those of you who sleep well during the first 2/3 of the night, but say waken around 4 o'clock and can't get back to sleep, maybe taking a regular dose of your levodopa will help you to get back to sleep. I know individuals who keep a dose of medication and a glass of water on their bedside table for occasions just like this, and as soon as the medication starts to work, they're able to sleep comfortably for the rest of the night. The other thing you can do, if this is the case, is you could possibly take the medication and chew it to give it a faster acting effect so that it will get absorbed into your system a little bit sooner and give you the benefit of having a better night's rest as well. Up until now, I have only been addressing sleep issues that are related to the dopamine deficient state of Parkinson's. That's the state we refer to as wearing off, where you need medication to reduce your symptoms of your tremor, your stiffness, and slowness. So just to summarize some possible strategies for these particular sleep issues that you can discuss with your doctor. 1, if you have trouble falling asleep, possibly taking a dose of levodopa in the evening will allow you to be comfortable in bed as you're trying to fall asleep. 2, if you're waking up, say, within 2 to 3 hours after falling asleep, maybe Sinemet CR or their controlled release Sinemet taken just as your head is hitting the pillow may allow you to stay asleep longer. And 3, if you waken around 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning and you're unable to get back to sleep, possibly taking an extra dose of your regular levodopa will allow you to get back to sleep. Having pills on your bedside table with a glass of water will cause the least disruption for you as well as for your partner. Remember, these are only suggestions, and don't do or change anything without consulting your physician. Never make any changes to your medication without the direction of your neurologist or your doctor, as the consequences of doing that may be very, very dangerous. As I said earlier in this chat today, while inadequate levodopa coverage during the night is the most common cause of insomnia, there are several other factors or conditions that may also play a role in your inability to get a good night's sleep. Time does not allow me to go into much detail about these other treatable contributors to insomnia, but I will briefly discuss some of these. And if you want more information, you can call or write to me. I'll be happy to go into more detail with you because sleep is essential. So one of the other factors that prevents some people from getting a good night's sleep is called Restless Leg Syndrome. Some people with Parkinson's, and even some people who don't have Parkinson's, because this is not just a symptom of people, for people with Parkinson's disease, but they describe Restless Leg Syndrome as an uncomfortable sensation in their legs when they're trying to get to sleep at night, or even just when they're trying to relax during the evening. These are usually described as crawling, itching, pulling feelings, as though something is physically moving up and down their legs. People with this disorder simply cannot lie or sit still and need to move their legs or get up and walk to relieve this problematic symptom, which is obviously very disruptive, not only to their sleep, but to anyone who is trying to sleep with them. Most people with restless leg syndrome also have something called periodic limb movements during their sleep, which are jerking movements of the legs that recur every 20 to 30 seconds, even sometimes for those people with Parkinson's as well, throughout the night. Individuals with this problem are most often unaware of these jerking movements because they can sleep throughout them, but their sleep partners are only too keenly aware that this is going on, and it is often the reason for partners and spouses to find that they have to sleep in another bed in order to get a good night's rest themselves. These periodic movements tend to inhibit deep sleep stages, so while individuals with Parkinson's do sleep while they're having these periodic leg movements, they do not have a restful sleep and consequently they will be very tired the next day. The medications for restless leg syndrome, as well as the periodic leg movements that I've just described, interestingly enough, are the dopamine agonist drugs that are Requip and Mirapex. Yes, the same ones used to treat Parkinson's. Talk to your doctor if you have these symptoms, as once again, they are treatable. The next contributor to insomnia that I want to address today is frequent urination. Well, I must admit, I really learned something new when I started to research this particular aspect. I knew that those people with Parkinson's often have an urge to urinate during the night, and that this need to urinate is often blamed for keeping people awake during the night. However, what I didn't realize is that light sleepers may periodically cycle into near wakefulness and then are aware that they need to use the washroom. So in other words, it is the urinary system that gets blamed for waking people up. But in actual fact, it's the light sleep that allows the urinary symptoms to come into awareness. So if your sleep can be improved with adequate levodopa dosing during the night, as I have already talked about, that may override most of your nighttime urinary urges. In other words, you may not find that you have the urge or the feeling of necessity to get up and use the washroom if you're able to have a good and restful night's sleep. It's only if you are a light sleeper that you become aware of the fact that you need to go to the washroom. Please don't forget, there of course can be other causes of urinary frequency that do need to be investigated. I know it's hard to believe, but once again, Parkinson's can't be blamed for absolutely everything. Also, be sure to try and avoid drinking anything after supper time, if at all possible, especially alcohol and caffeinated beverages, because they have a diuretic effect. In other words, they make you feel like you need to use the washroom, and don't take any water pills as well in the evening. Otherwise, your kidneys will feel that they need to work overtime. And of course, once again, that will keep you awake at night. Then there's the issue of depression in relation to sleep problems. Depression is very common in the general population. And of course, people living with Parkinson's who have insomnia, this is a common manifestation of depression. So if you frequently feel very blue or sad, if you have lost your appetite, if you have lost your interest in life in general, and if on top of all of that you can't sleep, you may have an underlying depression that needs to be treated. The good news is depression is absolutely treatable, and there are very effective medications to help you with this. So please, please, please don't feel that you have to suffer because you can feel better. Again, you have to let your doctor know how you're feeling. The last time I checked, doctors don't have crystal balls, and they can't treat what they don't know about. I'm not going to discuss specific medications to aid in sleep, but there are 3 basic categories that these drugs generally fall into. One is antihistamines, second, antidepressants, and third, drugs designed specifically to induce sleep. Your neurologist or your general practitioner will be able to recommend the ones that are the best for you and for your particular situations. So I'm going to switch gears now from not getting enough sleep or problems related to insomnia to the opposite problems. And the opposite problem comes under the category, I'm sleepy all the time. Understanding that we all need sleep, it's not hard to understand that a poor night's sleep, regardless of the cause, will cause drowsiness during the day. Sleepiness may also be a side effect from some of your medications. And finally, while you may sleep throughout the night, you don't get a sufficient deep sleep caused by your involuntary movements, such as those periodic leg movements I referred to as discussed a few minutes ago. Also, problems from something like sleep apnea also contribute to problems where you feel that you're tired during the day. You need to focus on your particular problems with getting a good night's sleep in order to get things back on track. The reality is that you only need a certain amount of sleep, however. So if you're sleeping throughout the day, and if between your Parkinson's and your Parkinson's medications, they are causing you to feel very sleepy throughout the day, again, you need to discuss these issues with your doctor, because that can be very, very, very problematic for many people. So, again, a variety of things can happen which may occur while you are asleep. And so there are other reasons and causes for disruptions of sleep during the night. Some of these disruptions can prevent you and your sleep partner as well from getting a good night's sleep. So I'm going to just refer to a few of these, and maybe some of you can relate to these. The first problem that can cause disruptions during the night are vivid dreams and nightmares. All of us have occasional nightmares or vivid dreams, and the medications used to treat Parkinson's disease occasionally increase this tendency. This is not in and of itself a serious problem, of course, unless you find it very disturbing. However, the development of vivid dreams needs to be distinguished from acting out your dreams, which I'm going to discuss in a minute or two, because acting out your dreams is due to Parkinson's, not your medications. Bearing in mind, any medication that passes into your brain could trigger nightmares. This includes our Parkinson's drugs, as well as medications for psychiatric conditions, for example, anxiety, insomnia, nighttime urinary symptoms, etc., prescription pain medications, and even muscle relaxants. As discussed, I'm going to now talk about some of these same medications and how they can contribute as well to nighttime confusion in some people who are very susceptible to these medication side effects. Something that is not very well understood, but happens frequently to people living with Parkinson's, is something called REM sleep behavior disorder. That is when people with Parkinson's act out your dreams. When humans dream, so I'm talking about people without Parkinson's, they typically are quiet and unmoving in bed. This is because the normal brain turns off the connection between the dreaming circuits and the movement control centers. Often in Parkinson's, however, that connection is not turned off, and people act out their dreams while they're asleep. Not only is this common in Parkinson's, it can also predate Parkinsonism for many years. I have talked to many, many individuals who have been acting out their dreams for many years prior to their diagnosis with Parkinson's. The dream behavior can be dramatic, with thrashing, hitting, or yelling during sleep. Some people may actually jump out of bed to chase a character in a dream. This phenomenon of acting out dreams is termed rapid eye movement sleep behavior disorder, or in short, REM sleep behavior disorder. The term rapid eye movement sleep relates to a specific sleep state. We normally cycle through various stages of sleep over the course of the night, going from lighter to deeper stages and then back again. Most dreaming occurs during the rapid eye movement stage of sleep. In this stage, our bodies are paralyzed, at least for those of us without Parkinson's. Our bodies are paralyzed except for our eye movements and our diaphragms. Thus, in normal individuals, again, those of us without Parkinson's, dreams are acted out only with eye movements, hence the term rapid eye movements, but not with our bodies. This obviously has practical consequences, preventing us from injuring ourselves or our bed partners while fighting the bad guys in our dreams and nightmares. People who act out their dreams, again, are said to have this REM sleep behavior disorder. And there's no question that Parkinson's predisposes to this dream enactment behavior. Although the Parkinson's drugs do get blamed, they in actual fact are not responsible. As mentioned, REM sleep behavior disorder can be a very early sign of Parkinson's, predating any other manifestations for many years. Those with REM sleep behavior disorder do not necessarily have a serious problem. It only becomes significant if the dream enactment behavior endangers the sleeper or the sleep mate. Falling out of bed while mentally running from a dream state pursuer may result in injury. Hitting your spouse while dreaming is equally serious. I recall very vividly, several years ago, a movement disorder specialist was speaking at one of our conferences. He was talking about problems of individuals with Parkinson's, and he put up a slide on the screen just of a person's face, and this individual had not only two black eyes, but virtually their whole face was black and blue. And I remember distinctly the reaction of the audience, and people went, "Oh!" And when he questioned people in the audience about what they thought this was, the people in the audience, including myself, said, "Oh, obviously that person with Parkinson's has had a horrible, horrible fall. And they've fallen right on their face. And that's why their face is black and blue." And he said, "No, this is the care partner of a person with Parkinson's. The person with Parkinson's, unbeknownst to the person with Parkinson's, of course, who was completely asleep while they had this REM sleep behavior going on, had really attacked their care partner. And as a result, this was the picture of the care partner after this incident." This is the reason I'm really stressing this today when I talk about sleep disorders, is because many people are embarrassed to talk about this. They're embarrassed to bring it up with their doctors, and yet it literally can be life-threatening if it's very severe for both a person with Parkinson's, who may fall out of bed or fall downstairs, again, if they're chasing somebody when this is going on, or it can definitely be life-threatening for the care partner. So if this is going on, even if it's not severe, please make your doctor aware of this, because it can be treated, which I'm going to talk about next. Again, falling out of bed while mentally running from a dream state pursuer can result in the injury of a person with Parkinson's, and hitting or trying to choke your spouse while you're dreaming is equally as serious. Treatment is obviously considered if there is potential for injury. Otherwise, of course, it requires no specific therapy, but definitely still needs to be mentioned to your doctor. So some practical strategies for the bedroom may be appropriate. These strategies can include a separate bed for the sleep partner. For those who are at risk of falling out of bed, surround the bed with padding and remove any furniture with sharp corners, such as a nightstand, for example. Bed rails may also be devised to prevent falls to the floor. If acting out dreams are sufficiently troublesome, however, a medication may be appropriate, and usually a medication that is used for this problem is called Clonazepam, Clonazepam. This drug is from the class of medications that includes things such as Valium. It is typically given as a single dose a little bit before bedtime, and it does induce sleep, so may be additionally beneficial for that reason as well. However, again, it does have some side effects and can cause kind of a hangover morning sleepiness as well. So again, it needs to be talked about and discussed with your doctor. But again, it can be prescribed in low doses and is very effective for this issue of REM sleep behavior disorder. Another drug that can be used for this problem is melatonin. This is an over-the-counter medication and can be used at bedtime as well. The medications we use that I've already discussed to treat Parkinson's, such as your levodopa, carbidopa, and any of the dopamine agonists, they don't treat REM sleep behavior disorder. So, as I said, this is something else to keep in mind. So I just want to go into another couple of things. Sometimes there is nighttime confusion. If individuals with Parkinson's have some cognitive issues, and if it's actually can be for some people with dementia, which occurs for some people in advanced Parkinson's, the people with impaired thinking, the most troublesome time is often always during the night. During the waking day, individuals with Parkinson's who do have dementia and cognitive impairment may be able to be better controlled, etc., but these same people may become very confused in the middle of the night, and that can, of course, be very disruptive for everyone in the household. So again, these are all things that definitely need to be gone over with your doctors and discussed in great detail, because sleep is essential. One more thing that I want to talk about today is the nighttime hallucinations. Nighttime confusion can be compounded by hallucinations, or better known as crazy ideas, where you see things that no one else can see and that are not really there. Hallucinations usually take the form of either people or creatures. Sometimes they can be very frightening, and the whole household can be wakened by what the person with Parkinson's believes to be an intruder. Hallucinations may be just as simple as well as a dog in the bedroom or even a relative at the bedside. But again, these things need to be brought up with your doctor, because sometimes hallucinations do take place during the night. So make sure that you understand that you have to discuss these issues with your doctor. For some people, they have nighttime sweating, and occasionally during the sleep, transition from a levodopa on state to an off state is accompanied by profound perspiration that literally soaks your bedclothes. Not only are you immersed at that time in sweat-soaked sheets and your pajamas are soaked as well, but also you become very stiff and immobile from the loss of your levodopa effect. The most effective treatment strategy, again, is to improve your levodopa coverage during the night. However, this may not be consistently effective since incomplete elimination of levodopa off states is often impossible. So, supplemental drugs have also been used to reduce bouts of perspiration, although, again, not with consistent success. Again, if you'd like more information, if you have issues with sweating, whether it's during the night or as well during the day, I would be more than happy to discuss these things in more detail. So I think I would just want to go over a few of the highlights that and how you may be able to modify your sleep so that you get a better night's rest. Avoid caffeine beyond the early afternoon. Again, caffeine will for many people, keeps people awake during the night. Also, avoid alcohol beverages, especially in the evening. These can induce sleep, but sometimes for some people, they do increase the likelihood of awakening in the middle of the night. Avoid evening activities that include stress. This includes good stress as well as late night sporting events. Sleep in a dark and quiet room. Clock watchers should move their alarms out of sight. Slightly cooler room temperatures are often most conducive for sleep, but of course you need to make sure that you have adequate bed covers. Avoid during other activities in bed, such as homework from the office, balancing your checkbook, and so on. Reserve the bed for sleep, as it allows the bedroom environment to trigger sleep-related thoughts. So make sure that when you go to bed, you're going to bed to sleep. That's considered good sleep hygiene. Also, avoid daytime naps. A single, relatively brief nap after lunch is not usually a problem, but specifically avoid naps after dinner. If tempted, leave your easy chair and engage in a stimulating activity such as walking or working on a hobby, something that will be more conducive to you staying awake in the evening. Establish regimented sleep patterns. Avoid having to reset your biological clock repeatedly. Make sure you're getting adequate exercise. Avoid exercise right before bed, as it can produce a stimulating effect. Make sure you don't watch any exciting types of television right before you try to go to sleep. If you have a television in your bedroom, make sure you don't try to watch something while you're trying to fall asleep, as that is definitely not conducive to getting to sleep. One common reason for nighttime insomnia among seniors, and among seniors with Parkinson's for sure, is called the reversal of the day-night cycle, and this deserves further emphasis. Sometimes retirees have the luxury of sleeping during the day if they don't get a good night's sleep, and sometimes this pattern can evolve and become a habit, and one of the most problematic problems for people with Parkinson's is, again, this day-night reversal, where the sleep occurs during the day, but not at night. If this is a problem, specific measures need to be taken to revert to a more normal sleeping pattern. So make sure, if you're going to sleep during the day, that you limit your afternoon nap to possibly an hour, and don't sleep beyond the early afternoon. Okay, so those are some of the topics with respect to sleep. Again, you know where I am if you have further questions about sleep. I've received a couple of questions today. I'm not sure what they are yet, but I'll go over them. So one of the first questions that I have is, what causes muscle spasms for Parkinson's patients, and what can be done to reduce or limit the effect? Well, I would need to have a little bit more information from the individual who asked this particular question, because muscle spasms can be something as straightforward as describing dystonia, which are those prolonged muscle cramps, but people have different ways of explaining issues. So I referred to dystonia, or those muscle cramps, a little earlier on in my presentation this afternoon. And if that is the case, it's usually muscle spasms, in that case commonly called dystonia, are related to not getting enough levodopa. So usually it means that the time that you take your levodopa, in other words, the frequency sometimes needs to be increased, so you need to take more, or you may need to take a higher dose of the levodopa. But if the individual who asked this question would like to call me and get more information about muscle spasms, again, I can be reached at 416-227-3375, or you can contact my executive director, that's Debbie Davis, and her email address is debbie.davis, that's DAVIS, at parkinson.ca. So just write to Debbie and ask her for more information, or to provide me with the question, or give me a call, and I'd be happy to go into that in more detail. Another question I've received today is, we've been wondering about the effects of Parkinson's on feet, focusing on cramping and curling up toes almost involuntarily. Okay, so I'm going to deal with that one first. There are a couple of aspects to this particular question. So this particular issue, wondering about the Parkinson's effect on feet, focusing on cramping and curling up toes, that's dystonia. That's exactly what I was just referring to with the gentleman who asked about muscle spasms. So it seems to me that I need to do a complete presentation in one of my lunchtime chats on dystonia. So I will choose that as a topic for this year. But before I get to that, for the individuals, any individuals who are having problems with your feet cramping, toes curling up, that is specifically dystonia, and please call me, and I'd be more than happy to provide you with more information, both over the phone as well as I do have a tip sheet on dystonia, because again, it is treatable. The other parts of this question are around sexuality and intimacy, and for my February talk, my February lunchtime chat, that is the topic I have actually chosen to discuss. So February's lunchtime chat, which I believe will be on Tuesday, February the 8th, I hope I have that date correct, will be on sexuality and intimacy. So stay tuned for that one, because I feel it's a very important and not well enough addressed topic. It's a topic that I think intimacy, regardless of whether we have Parkinson's or not, is extremely important, and I will be addressing that in February. So that's not a problem. Just hang on a second. Oh, I beg your pardon. It's the 9th of February. I've just been corrected on that. So tune in for that one. Okay. So apparently there's a bit of a dialogue going on online about the treatment for restless leg syndrome, and is the medication for that incompatible? And then this person has written, okay, you just answered my question. So I guess when I talked about restless leg syndrome, that already answered the question. So generally speaking, restless leg syndrome is treated by the Parkinson's, the same medications that are used for Parkinson's, the dopamine agonists, such as Mirapex and Requip. Someone else has made the comment that the Nupril, or the rotigotine patch, has worked well for some people. And again, when I do a topic this year for my talk on from one of my lunchtime chats, I'll go over medications again in more detail. And so that will be, some of these things will be addressed at that time. Okay, guys, well, my clock says 12:56. My voice says, please stop talking. As for those of you who know me, you will smile at that comment, because if there's something that Sandy Jones has great difficulty in doing, it's being quiet. I think I was born talking. At any rate, I think that I have stretched my vocal cords as much as I can. Oh, I know what I meant. Speaking of that, you see what I mean? I get distracted. I wanted to share with you also that having had this laryngitis has given me more insight into speech problems for people with Parkinson's, because the amount of effort and energy that I have to put into making myself heard and into projecting, the ability to project my voice, is absolutely exhausting. So for those of you out there who have speech issues, soft speech, not being able to be heard very well, I completely empathize. So sometimes the symptom of this laryngitis makes me more empathetic for things like that. I completely understand how exhausting it is to try to be heard. Anyway, I'm not going to be heard anymore now. I'm going to sign off for today. I thank you all so much for tuning in, and please come along for the February ride on sexuality and intimacy. Okay? In the meantime, I'll send you all a big hug to start with, and again, I'll say Happy New Year. Glad to have you on board, and look forward to talking with you in February. Take care, everybody. Bye for now.